Okay, so where will it apply? Most new residential and a good portion of new commercial construction. Residential additions will be bound by the stretch code. And then in general, residential remodeling projects where you're affecting the exterior envelope of the building, the exterior walls, the sheathing, the insulation, things like that. So if you're doing a gut rehab, you're bound by the stretch code. Any exemptions? Yes. Commercial renovations are not in the mix. And what was the reason for that, Mark? I understand that the Green Communities Program felt that maybe it was a little bit too tough to develop a standard there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research nationally on what you can accomplish in new commercial building, and we had good numbers on what percentage savings you could do, but there just aren't any good numbers on commercial renovations, so we didn't feel comfortable mandating something.
Thank you. Historic homes are exempt, and this means any homes that are on any local, state, or national register, or have some certificate of eligibility for one of those registers, and which obviously applies to a lot of homes here in Salem. Certain types of commercial construction, under a particular size, certain specialty construction, supermarkets, things like that. I'll let the others speak in more detail on that. And then a variety of residential projects. This stuff wouldn't even apply. As builders, there are a lot of things, a lot of projects you're going to do where this stuff just plain won't apply. Things like decks. Storm windows which affect building envelope, but there's an exemption in 120AA for that. Roofing and siding projects, most of those, if you do rip off the building paper or the house wrap, it's my understanding that once you're down to the sheathing, you do have to pay attention to it. In most cases, if you're doing a re-roofing job or a re-siding job, it's not going to apply. And then detached unconditioned garages can apply. And basically any unconditioned space. Okay, so kind of a quick breakdown. It looks more complex than it really is. You can probably just focus on the far right column here. We, with the assistance of Tom McGrath, our assistant building inspector, did an analysis of building permits here in Salem. We looked at what's typically the busiest month for building permit applications here in Salem, which is May. We looked at it for a 3-year period, 07 through 09. And in fact, 65% of the projects in Salem would likely have been exempt from the stretch code. So this, again, I think underscores the idea that this is not a big leap right now. It's not going to affect a lot of projects. All right, so what's the cost? In many cases, nothing. It's a matter of just making the right design choices up front. There's good design, there's bad design. In many cases, it's not going to cost you anything. That being said, there are certain administrative costs or verification costs that are associated with getting a building rated, for instance, or achieving compliance under this framework. And that's going to cost money. Getting the HERS rating, which Chris will talk about a little later on. There is a fee associated with that. But generally you get it back and then some with the performance improvement. In many cases, there will be a modest cost premium in terms of the actual project work that you have to implement, the measures that you have to implement to achieve energy efficiency. You might have to pay a little more for a high efficient heating system or something like that. It often it's worthwhile to note that there are water savings associated with this stuff. If you're using efficient domestic home water systems, you may end up with water savings as well. For new construction, there are going to be potentially big upfront costs. But if you defray that upfront cost over the life of a mortgage and factor in the energy savings, you end up being net cash positive over the life of the mortgage and paying for those savings. And Mark's going to talk in more detail about that. And so what's in it for you as an owner? Well, reduced operating expense, I think, is obvious. You typically end up with healthier and more comfortable indoor environments. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just stretching my arm.
Through effective moisture management, for instance, which is a key part of, the Energy Star guidelines and the guidelines associated with the stretch code, you have less of a chance of creating an environment where mold will grow, just as one example. You end up with a more durable structure, quite often for the same reasons. You can get increased value at resale. I heard a study, it's probably 10 years old, but I think the assumptions are the same, that for every dollar you spend on energy conservation at resale, you get 20 back. And that was a university peer-reviewed study. So there's probably some solid basis to it. And then for landlords, you end up with a more attractive rental. If your tenants are going to spend less on energy, it's going to be a more attractive rental, I think. All right, so for design and construction professionals, what's the value proposition? Added value for clients, certainly. They're going to be spending less of their energy and utility bills. You become early adopters, you develop your familiarity with it now, and it's going to be less of a stretch, as these new iterations of the code go on. And I think this is one of the biggest things right here. This is a rapidly growing field right now. You've got Energy Star. You've got the National Association of Home Builders Green Program. You've got National Association of Remodeling Industry Green Remodeling Standard, and things like LEED for Homes. The whole industry is moving in this direction. So, if you don't adopt at least some, if you don't embrace it at least at some level, you're going to be an also-ran. You're going to end up missing the train. You're also going to be in very good company because right now there are, I think it's 44 municipalities that have adopted the stretch code here in Massachusetts, which represents, as I understand, roughly 20% of the whole population of Massachusetts. So this is about to become, in my view, kind of the de facto building code here in the state, even if it's not, officially adopted statewide. Okay, so compliance. Permitting is essentially still the same. Compliance is by what is known as either the prescriptive or performance path. And the simplified version of those is that the prescriptive path allows you to just pick things off a checklist, insulation levels, or you have to adhere to a checklist essentially. There's the builder option package, which these guys will talk about in more detail, but you're picking measures off the list. Wall insulation has to be, R20, 21, ceiling insulation, R38, different things like that. Your windows have to have a certain U value or heat conductance value. And then there's a performance path where you're actually doing the modeling, doing the PERS rating, and you're getting a performance number for the home, or you're doing energy modeling in the commercial realm. That costs a little money, but you typically get it back. And one great thing about the performance approach, and I think the thing that really makes a lot of this worthwhile, is it allows some trade-offs. For instance, you pump up the insulation in the walls, and maybe you can downsize your mechanical systems. Or conversely, you use a more efficient heating system, you might be able to knock down the level of insulation in the walls. The performance-based approach is rooted in these third-party raters or the folks doing the energy modeling. And so when does it go into effect here? When is this going to cover you? Well, officially, it went into effect July 1st of this year. But the Board of Building Regulations, the standards for the state, the ones that establish the state building code, have a built-in concurrency period. So for the first 6 months of a new code, you can use either the new code that's been adopted, or you can use the older version of the code. So we have this concurrency period here in Salem that runs from July 1st to December 31st. As of January 1st of next year, the stretch code will be the sole code that's in effect here in Salem. Swampscott as well. They adopted the stretch code also. Okay. All right, how do you put it into practice? Well, understanding how heat moves through a building, or you know, understanding mechanical systems. You know, what goes into the efficiency of mechanical systems. But understanding the heat transfer through the building envelope, the way air moves through a building, these things are key. And Chris is going to cover that in some detail. Developing a familiarity with the Energy Star Homes guidelines, I believe on the resource sheet that's linked online. You can download the thermal bypass guide. And that's it's a virtual handbook on how to do this stuff. It's great. Understanding the importance of good duct design is another important thing, particularly at the residential level. You know, duct leakage can be a huge waste of energy, particularly as it runs through unconditioned space. And then understanding the impact of lighting and appliances and other mechanical equipment on inflation is important as well. That's my piece. Hopefully I got the pump primed pretty well. We can entertain questions now.
Yeah, we have time for one or two questions for Paul before we start.
Yes.
What electric company do you have? Do you have municipal light?
No, we have an investor utility, national grid.
Okay, so that you can enjoy the rebates and stuff through that?
Yeah,
also?
yeah, absolutely. Anyone else before I hand it off to Mark?
I'm curious about the rebates. Do they go to the building owner or to the builder? How does that?
I think it varies depending on the rebate.
Okay.
Are you guys, do you know more about that, Mark?
I think they go to whoever the current donor is, who's ever putting out the money.
Yeah, so if you're a builder or a developer and you know laid out this cash to build a development or a home, you get the rebate. I know Energy Star has a rebate for home builders.
Yeah, usually the new construction, they go to the person who owns that building. Renovations and some upgrades on an existing house or
Does it apply to secondary homes, vacation homes?
I'm sorry?
Does it apply to vacation homes, non-primary residence?
Yes, yep. Yeah, so any space basically, or any structure with conditioned space, you know, aside from the exemptions,